joke about it. And, Dave Flemming doing a really good job in that interview. And I think he's on the line right now.
Yes, he is joining us right now on 95.7 The Game on the River Islands guest line. Isn't it time for you to discover the islands, River Islands in Lathrop? Evan Giddings, Sam Lubman. Pleased to be joined now by Dave Flemming, was on the call last night for Blake Snell's no-hitter in Cincinnati. Dave, thank you so much for hopping on with us. How are you?
I'm good. Hi, guys.
Well, Dave, I feel like we got to start with where we just picked up. Blake Snell, he was utterly dominant. A lot of firsts for him last night. First time he goes into the ninth, first time he throws a complete game, first time he throws a no-hitter. You were on the call for it. Is it something that you can kind of sense early? Obviously, he's been supremely dominant coming off of 15 strikeout performance. But when did you kind of get the sense that he was perhaps on the verge of doing something that he had not been able to do before to this point in his career?
Well, I don't know if I thought he was going to pitch a no-hitter, but I think you could go back and watch that first inning, and I could make an argument that it's the greatest first inning I've ever seen pitched. I mean, he was unbelievable from pitch one last night, and truly, I was almost speechless after the first inning. Was like, well, that's as good as I've ever seen anybody throw the ball. I mean, it was unhittable dominance. I think every pitch but one in the first inning was a strike, and he blew him away. So we certainly had an inkling that the stuff that he's had his last few starts was going to carry over into last night. Whether we had any clue that he was going to throw a no-hitter, I guess, is a whole different thing. That would be hard to sense in the first inning, but gosh, that was one of my favorite parts about last night was how great it started and how dominant he looked from literally the very first pitch he threw.
So, Dave, you've called a lot of no-hitters in your time broadcasting games for the Giants. And, you said, obviously, you don't come to the ballpark, expecting a no-hitter. But as you're watching Blake Snell put in that work, as the innings start stacking up, you start seeing more and more zeros on the scoreboard there. At what point do you start to kind of get the sense like, oh, wow, he's not just pitching well. He's pitching well enough to where we might actually be able to have a no-hitter developing here?
Yeah, the pitch count was the thing that obviously, now in this modern age, that's what we kind of worry about. And when in the fifth inning, when he walked a couple guys, he talked to us after the game about how mad he was at himself, and he got mad at the umpire, and Bailey intervened. And then there was that at bat. I think it was Santiago Espinal had a 9-pitch at bat to start an inning, and Snell got him out, but it was the kind of at bat that was like, oh man, that might cost him a chance to finish this game. And I think right after that, he got a couple very quick outs, and that's when my brain sort of started to think, oh, okay. Now that he got through that, I think he's got a chance to really do this. But I do want to repeat what I said a minute ago. Like, from pitch one, he threw a 96-mile-an-hour fastball exactly on the black the first pitch of the game. And for him, he's got such great stuff no matter what. It's always about his command. And that first pitch, to me, announced, I know it sounds crazy, but announced like, okay, he's here to dominate tonight. So in the back of my head, I never felt nervous about him giving up a hit. There was never an at-bat where I thought, oh, this guy's on him or he's seeing the ball really well. It was purely a matter of, can he be efficient enough to finish the game?
Dave Flemming joining us on 95.7 The Game via the River Islands guest line. It's funny you mentioned that because watching the game, the first pitch certainly, but the first strikeout where he just puts 97 right on the hands of Jonathan India, who has no chance. There was definitely a tone-setting first inning for him, of course, striking out the side. So I'm 100% with you. And as far as the remainder of the game, I know there wasn't necessarily maybe the standout defensive play. There was the line-out double play. But there was a moment midway through that game where Snell had to kind of overcome perhaps some frustration with the strike zone, right? And that actually was against Jonathan India again, where he puts a changeup on the black, not called a strike. Breaking ball low and in, not called a strike. He actually gets quite, visibly frustrated with the umpire, and then eventually strikes out India on maybe the pitch that wasn't actually the strike during that at bat. So, I mean, you've seen Blake Snell for the majority of this season. I felt like that illustrated how much of a bulldog he is. And I'm just very happy that Giants fans are now getting to witness consecutively, successively, just the competitor that he is, in addition to how good he is at throwing the baseball.
He's a very, more even than having watched him from afar, and I've seen a lot of his starts on the other side over the years, but he is more emotional and fiery on the mound than I think I realized. And that can be good. And it can also, I think he admits that sometimes it costs him a little bit. Sometimes he makes it a little harder on himself. So I have enjoyed learning that about him, because I am a sucker for guys who kind of let their emotions play out in front of all of us. I think it makes the game more fun. And that was definitely the one moment where things were starting to get, and he had a right to be upset. A couple of those pitches in that inning where Bailey had to come out and calm him down, and he's barking at Malachi Moore. A couple of those pitches were not balls, and they were called balls. And so I get why he was upset about that. Ultimately, he and the umpire, that was a pretty good pairing for him. So in the moment he wasn't happy, but ultimately that was a pretty good strike zone for him.
So Dave, big thing that, Bob Melvin's talked about, Farhan Zaidi's talked about this week is that, playoff teams, they need to go on those runs where they win, 14 of 18 to really kind of, juice the record up, get them into that playoff positioning there. You're seeing the Giants start to heat up. I believe they've won 7 of their last 9, but when you look at what Logan Webb did on Wednesday night, what Blake Snell did last night, are those the kind of performances that can kind of help jumpstart this team to go on one of those extended runs that, Farhan and Bomel have been kind of hoping that's coming along for a while now?
Yeah, that's probably how it's going to have to happen for this team, because, look, the Giants offense in the first half actually was better statistically than probably everybody realized, especially considering offense around all of baseball's down. I think probably folks underestimated how good, not great, but good the Giants offense was in the first half of the year. And since the All-Star break, it has not been very good. And with Lamont Wade beat up and still looking a little compromised at the plate in his legs, and Michael Conforto he's just struggling to get it going. And I feel for those guys. Mike Yastrzemski's been good, solid. But a lot of those veterans outside of Matt Chapman are really having a hard time right now. It's harder to see the path for like an explosive Giants offense. So I think the formula for this team is going to have to be lean on that pitching. And we'll see. The key is probably some of those guys you mentioned, the younger guys. I think Webb and Snell are going to do their part. I don't think there's much doubt about that. But if Harrison can keep on the trajectory that he's on, he's been, to me, very encouraging his last couple times. Hayden Birdsong's kind of a wild card. We're entering uncharted territory with him. He's throwing a lot of innings, way more than he has as a pro. We'll see how he holds up. Robbie Ray's coming off surgery. Those guys all can be dominators, but it's not a guarantee that they are. And probably the Giants' chances for a run that you're talking about come down to those 3. If those 3 can pitch at a really high level, you got an opportunity to go 9-1 or 10-2 or whatever it's going to take to get them right there in the mix.
Television and radio voice of the San Francisco Giants, Dave Flemming is joining us on 95.7 The Game via the River Islands guest line. Taking a look at this stretch right now that they're on: Cincinnati, Washington, Detroit, Atlanta for 4, but then Oakland and Chicago. How much urgency do you feel like is on this kind of 12-game or 14-game stretch before you get into the Seattles, the Milwaukees? I know you can't look too far ahead, but do you feel like this is the time, if the San Francisco Giants are to make a run, that these next few series against some teams that have not performed necessarily well as of late, nor over the course of the season, is this the time for San Francisco to try and make a run?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to. It is hard to schedule wins. We all want to do it. We all want to look at the schedule. Oh, that's a win. This is a win. That's a tough series. This is an easier series. It really does not work that way. However, what I would say is, if you go through kind of the first weekend of September, there are definitely some tough opponents in there. Definitely. But the month of September features 6 games against Arizona, 6 games against the Padres and 3 games against the Cardinals. And you have to be in a position to make those games matter. Like if they're 5 or 6 games behind those teams come those series, you're almost certainly not going to make up that ground, even when you get head-to-head matchups. If you're 2 games out, then you got a chance to really make those games matter. And that's where I think the next 3 weeks, whether you think the schedule's easy or not, you just have to put yourself in a position to make those games matter. Otherwise, you're finally going to get the head-to-head matchups against the teams you're trying to chase down, and it won't make enough of a difference. So that's, the A's are playing well. The Braves are a tough team. You've got the Mariners and the Brewers. That road trip is not going to be easy at all. But you got to win a lot of those games so that the Diamondbacks, Padres, Cardinals games are the ones that are the most important games of the year.
Well, Dave, if they're going to go on a run and make the playoffs, step one is going to be getting back to 500. They have a chance to do it tonight, but getting back to 500 has been a real challenge for this team, Dave. They are 2-10 when they enter a game with a chance to get back to 500. And one of those wins was game 2 of the year when they beat the Padres to improve their record to 1-1. I'm just curious, in your opinion, why it's been so difficult for this team to get over that hump and get, to 500 and then above 500 after that?
Well, I think a lot of it has been the lack of consistency on the pitching side. The offense has been frustrating for sure at times, but I think the biggest story of the year up until now feels different because they have a different looking starting rotation. But up until now, whether it's because of injuries and having to bullpen so many games or whatever the case, the Giants just haven't been able to get hot for a week to get to that 500 and a couple of games over, but to me, because of the inconsistency of the pitching. Now that they have that, you got a much better chance to not be so allergic to 500. Let's see if they can pull it off tonight. Not going to be easy. Hunter Green's been almost like Paul Skeens here these last few weeks. Like, he's been awesome for the Reds. So the Giants have their hands full tonight.
Dave Flemming joining us on the River Islands guest line here on 95.7 The Game. And I did want to ask you a little bit about the offense because at the deadline, there's certainly a direction that indicated they're going to expect to lean more on their younger players. And with that comes some inconsistency. You see the highs of Tyler Fitzgerald. Someone like Elliot Ramos has maybe regressed a bit, but has still been performing over the course of this year fantastic. How much confidence do you feel like has been instilled and given to these younger players? That has to feel empowering in one breath, that they believe that these younger players can help this offense at least stay at a level competitive enough to then, with the pitching staff, ideally get you to a place where you're making a postseason push. How much confidence do you have that these younger players in their first real chase to October can stand the test?
I have a lot of confidence. I think it's always a test for young guys. And it's not just the pressure of how important games are. It's also the grind of a long season. Like, even guys who are used to playing full minor league seasons, the big league season's a month longer. And that, when you're digging deep day after day after day, that extra month of games can be really taxing on younger players. So I think that's one of the biggest challenges for that group of guys that you're talking about is, how will they hold up mentally, physically over a longer season? If you've never done it before, and a lot of those guys have had a taste of a longer season before, but if you haven't done it before, it's a challenge. I know Bob Melvin told us the other day that he really feels like part of Tyler Fitzgerald's success has been when they let Nick Ahmed go. And, Tyler, young guys have a tendency for many different reasons. But when you're trying to establish yourself as a major league player, not just a tweener or a guy who's getting a cup of coffee or whatever, you're trying to establish your career and set yourself up to have a long career here. Everything that comes with that, making a lot of money, all the perks of being a big leaguer, the adrenaline rush of playing in these big ballparks, all that stuff. There's just so much pressure you put on yourself to make it stick. Every opportunity, I got to prove that that's who I am. And that is a hard way to perform. And so I think Bob's point was, when the Giants let Nick Ahmed go and basically told Tyler Fitzgerald, maybe without saying the words out loud, you're here, you're on this team, you're a part of this team, that he relaxed and didn't feel like every single at bat was a referendum on the future of him and his family. I mean, I think sometimes that's like how the pressure can feel for these guys. And you're seeing a really good result from it. So sometimes it is that opportunity that's uninhibited that can unlock an extra level of performance from a talented player.
You know, Dave, we obviously we brought you on to talk some baseball and talk about Blake Snell, but I know you're very well rounded in the world of sports, doing football, you do golf. We got some Olympic action going up on the TV here in the studio. So I'm kind of curious. I know you're a busy guy calling all these games, but with the Olympics going on, have you been locking into them? Are there events that you kind of like to watch more than others? How locked in is Dave Flemming on the Olympics right now?
Yeah, I like the daytime aspect of it. We're working every night, so the primetime coverage is sort of lost on me, and it is almost every Olympics. It's one of the downsides of, doing what we do is that when the other stuff is going on, we kind of miss it. But I love the fact that you can flip it on during the daytime. I'm into almost all of it. Like I love my college roommate was a potential Olympian. And, when you go to Stanford, there's lots of Olympians around, and the idea that you dedicate yourself for years basically to peak in one event for one chance at that is, it's so different than basically anything else in sports. And the drama that comes from that, the heartache, the ecstasy, all that stuff is hard to match. So I do love the Olympics. I don't love, sometimes we go so over the top to try to build stories about. Sometimes I just want to watch the dang things and see the emotion on their faces. And when I get to do that, I'm really happy. I am a big fan of the Olympics, and I love track and field. So this is the week now that started. This is the week that I really enjoy.
Yeah, I think the 100-meter semifinal and final is supposed to be today. So we'll see for women's, that is. So we'll see Sha'Carri Richardson try and get the gold there. So we'll definitely try and lock in for that later today.
Yeah, fun. I mean, a great 100-meter race. There's not much like that in sports.
Mm-hmm. No doubt. Well, Dave, I know you're a busy man. Thank you so much for your time, and good luck on the call tonight. We look forward to hearing you.
Good luck to Kyle Harrison. Beat that, kid.
Thanks a lot, Dave.
Guys.